Today we're going to make a forgotten tiki drink, Chief Lapu Lapu. For this drink, you're going to need a tiki mug, or a snifter glass, a jigger, some fancy straws, a cocktail shaker, a cutting board and a small knife, and optionally, a swizzle stick. This drink uses light Cuban style rum, dark Jamaican rum, passion fruit syrup, simple syrup, fresh lemon juice, fresh orange juice, and optionally, cinnamon sticks for garnish. During the Golden Age of Tiki, it was not uncommon to find a drink on the menu bearing some variation of Lapu Lapu's name. Its star has since fallen into obscurity, and it was certainly not as iconic as the Mai Tai or the Zombie or even the Fog Cutter, but several bars offered a version of it. It was sort of like Dr. Funk, where the name and the recipe were modified slightly from bar to bar. Part of the reason for the variations were that exotic drinks were treated like trade secrets. This is a tradition that began with the founder of Tiki, Ernest Raymond Beaumont Gantt, who later changed his name to Donn Beach. He opened the first tiki bar, Don the Beachcomber, in Hollywood in the 1930s. It was an instant success, and it wasn't long before Don's imitators started popping up. They could copy his decor and his aesthetics, but they couldn't get his recipes. Don's thrilling exotic cocktails were a real draw. They were mostly original creations, and the recipes were tightly guarded. Don the Beachcomber had a bar where guests could watch bartenders make standards like a Tom Collins or a Gimlet, but any of Don's famous creations like the Zombie were made in the back. In the back, there was an assembly line of Filipino bartenders, each working on different parts of a cocktail's build. These bartenders would get poached by other tiki bars, and were paid to bring their little black recipe books with them. The exact inventor of this drink is unknown, but it was a safe bet that it was invented by or named by a bartender who would be familiar with exotic drinks and the history of Chief Lapu Lapu. In the 1500s, the Spanish were desperate to find a westward route to Asia in order to create a pipeline of all their valuable spices. Ferdinand Magellan, a Portuguese explorer, was commissioned by the Spanish to do just that. Magellan's expedition would be the first to sail around the world. It took him 3 years, and only 18 of the over 200 crew members made it. They sailed west through the Atlantic Ocean, around what is now South America, through Polynesia, through Southeast Asia, around South Africa, and back to Spain. However, Magellan's expedition ran into some trouble as they traveled through what is now the Philippines. Trouble named Lapu Lapu. Magellan Island hopped around the Philippines, getting local chiefs to bend the knee. Chief Lapu Lapu refused. In the ensuing fight, Magellan along with several of his crew were killed. This sent the Spaniards packing, and they even had to leave one of their ships behind because they didn't have enough people left to man it. Several decades later, however, the Spanish came back and established a colony that lasted over 300 years. Then after the Spanish-American War in 1898, the U.S. took over, interrupted by a couple years of Japanese rule during World War II. Formally, the U.S. relinquished its control of the Philippines in 1946, but informally had a harder time letting go. Lapu Lapu was memorialized as the first Filipino to resist colonial rule. He was a folk hero and a symbol of freedom. Throughout the nearly 400 years of colonial subjugation, Filipinos fought back in an almost constant stream of revolts, and Chief Lapu Lapu served as an inspiration. Even though the specific origin of this drink isn't really clear, it was most likely created by one of the Filipino bartenders that used to work at Don the Beachcomber. And the name Lapu Lapu appeared on the 1940s-era menus of the Beverly Hills exotic watering hole The Tropics. This is the same bar that later got bought out by Steve Crane and became the Luau. Ray Buen, the founder of Tiki Tea and one of Don's original Filipino bartenders, got the recipe for the Chief Lapu Lapu on his menu from his time at the Luau. The drink had various forms in the 1950s, but according to Tiki historian Beach Bum Berry, this is the most common iteration, which happens to be my favorite. The base is equal parts dark Jamaican rum and light Cuban style rum. The drink is best when you can create this flavor combination with the dryness of the light and the big fruity funk of the dark. But when making drinks at home, not everyone has unlimited shelf space, so feel free to use a flavorful blend, or just play around with the rums you have on hand. If you don't have a tiki mug, you can serve this one in a brandy snifter, which is actually how Beach Bum Berry recommends to serve it. Garnish the drink how you like. However, I like to use a nautical swizzle and a few cinnamon sticks. The swizzle represents the ship the Spaniards had to leave behind, and the cinnamon sticks not only look like a crown, but also serve as a reminder of the spices Magellan died looking for. This incredible mug, the Marquesian mug, comes from Pie-Eyed Tikis, a husband and wife team of ceramicists and all-around tiki enthusiasts from Central Florida, who among other things created my favorite zombie mug. The metal swizzle stick, called the Voyager, comes from Van Tiki, another tiki ceramicist who specializes in making limited collectible tiki mugs. The mug, the swizzle, and the crown of cinnamon make for a fitting tribute to the Filipino king. Compared to other tiki drinks, it's relatively simple, and built to serve too, so feel free to share it. No need to be stingy with this one. Before I get started, I like to cut, squeeze, strain, and bottle my citrus juices. That way it's easier to pour when it comes time to measure. Next, beat up some ice. Add ice cubes to the Lewis bag and roll it up. If you don't have a Lewis bag, you can use a bar towel. Just fold it up so the ice can't escape. With the Lewis bag rolled, crush it like it's the Spanish at the Battle of Mactan. Then measure out 12 ounces of crushed ice and set it aside. Next, measure 1.5 ounces of light rum. Add that to the shaker. Measure 1.5 ounces of dark Jamaican rum. Add that to the shaker. Measure 1 ounce of passion fruit syrup. Add that to the shaker. Measure 1 ounce of simple syrup. Add that to the shaker. Measure 2 ounces of lemon juice. Add that to the shaker. Measure 3 ounces of orange juice. Add that to the shaker. With this jigger, that's 2 pours. Add the 12 ounces of crushed ice and 3 or 4 ice cubes to help stir the pot. Give everything a good shake to chill it down and give it some dilution. Pour the contents of your shaker unstrained into your tiki mug or snifter glass. Top it off with some more crushed ice. Work in your swizzle stick and fancy straws. Prep your cinnamon sticks by rolling them back and forth in your palm. This will help bring out some aromatics. Then work your cinnamon sticks in for garnish. And there he is, the Filipino hero, Chief Lapu Lapu, Hakole Maluna. You can support this channel by clicking on the Patreon link here. Check out some more videos, be sure to subscribe, and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For links, more info, and the printed recipe, check out the description below.